What if your greatest struggle was your soul's most radical act of love? What if the pain you carry, the cravings you can't silence, and the spiral you've fallen into weren't signs of failure, but sacred symbols of a deeper purpose? Today, we're going to explore addiction, not as a disease or moral failing, but as a chosen path, a soul contract, a crucible for awakening. This isn't about romanticizing suffering. It's about opening a portal to meaning where most only see shame. We're diving deep into the idea that addiction may be a form of sacred suffering, one that the soul chooses before birth in order to break free from illusions and remember who we truly are. Society tells us that addiction is weakness, a flaw, a defect in your brain chemistry or your character. The addict becomes the problem, the outcast, the one who couldn't control their impulses like everyone else. But what if this story is wrong? What if addiction isn't a sign that you're broken, but that you're awakening? Many ancient traditions speak of the wounded healer, the one who walks through fire so they can lead others out, the shaman who falls ill so they can access unseen worlds, the soul who chooses pain not as punishment, but as a portal. In this view, addiction becomes something more than pathology. It becomes initiation, a descent into the underworld, like Inanna, like Christ, like Persephone, that must happen in order to reclaim the hidden parts of the self. Imagine that before you were born, your soul met with guides, and in that eternal stillness, it saw the trajectory of this life, the wounds you would inherit, the choices you would face, the karmic debts you might settle, and perhaps, knowing what would be required to wake up, your soul said yes to addiction. Why would anyone choose that? Because sometimes, only by losing yourself can you truly find yourself. Addiction strips away the surface. It tears through illusion. It reveals the hollowness of external validation, of control, of fitting in. It forces confrontation with emptiness, not as punishment, but as opportunity. And it is often those who feel the deepest void who also carry the deepest longing for the divine. At its core, addiction isn't about drugs, or sex, or alcohol, or food. It's about hunger, a spiritual hunger, for meaning, connection, love, presence. When the soul feels exiled from the divine, from community, from itself, it searches. And if it can't find God, it will settle for a substitute, a hit, a high, a distraction. But the substitute never satisfies. And so the cycle repeats. Not because the addict is weak, but because they are starving for something our culture has forgotten how to offer: sacredness, stillness, soul. What if we stopped treating addiction like a problem to be fixed and started seeing it as a call to return? Addiction can be a form of the dark night of the soul, a term mystics use to describe the collapse of everything you thought you were. In the dark night, the ego dies. Identity unravels. You reach for God and hear silence. But it's in that silence that something deeper is born. Not belief, but knowing. Not religion, but presence. The addict in recovery doesn't just learn to stay clean. They often become the most awake people in the room. Why? Because they've seen hell and chosen to come back. The darkness taught them something the light never could, that you are more than your pain, that underneath the craving is a sacred yearning, and underneath the shame is a soul that never stops shining. There is a reason so many recovered addicts become teachers, healers, creators, because they carry medicine. They've learned to sit with discomfort, to walk through cravings, to dismantle ego, to hear the voice beneath the noise. They've turned collapse into compassion, and their presence, raw, unfiltered, awake, becomes a lighthouse for others. Addiction becomes the wound that opens the heart, the suffering that shatters illusions, the descent that leads to rebirth. And slowly, the addict becomes the alchemist, transforming pain into power, craving into creativity, and exile into embodiment. So, if you're struggling now, if you feel lost, ashamed, or broken, this is for you. You are not broken. You are in the middle of a sacred initiation. Your soul may have chosen this path not because you are weak, but because you are ready to awaken in a world that has forgotten how. You came here not to be normal, but to be real. And perhaps, just perhaps, the addiction wasn't your end. It was your beginning.